Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the way of the future. You know, I think we're just really at the very early stages. But we are sound. You know, we are frequency just condensed into physical form.
Yeah.
And that's why sound can be so effective, because it's sound meeting sound.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for watching. This is some highlights from our online sessions that I call the Inner Sanctum online sessions. And I edit out about 40 minutes from our teachers free for you to watch, because people that join our online sessions, it is a paid service. It is part of the way I make a living and help other teachers promote their work. So if you'd like to join the online Inner Sanctum group sessions, we have a guest teacher once a month, and I teach once or twice a month deliberate creation and energy exercises and how to tap into your intuition and how to be more psychic. Please sign up on the website Karen/Inner Sanctum. So I hope you join us if you're somebody that wants to make a difference in this world and feel like you've got something to share and you'd like a little support team and meet other teachers and meet some of the guests I have on the show and hear wonderful stories and wonderful teachings. So enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you soon. So hello and welcome to the Inner Sanctum with Karen Swain and my guest teacher Jane Elworthy. Welcome, Jane.
Hello everybody. Hello, Karen.
Let me tell people a bit about Jane who haven't seen the show I've done with Jane. Jane works as a sound healer, teacher, presenter, performer and pilgrimage leader who's bringing through sacred sound energies to guide and assist through the medium of rhythm, sound and story in these ever-changing times. From a difficult and traumatic childhood to an international sound healer, shamanic teacher and channel, Jane's mission is to help people remember their true divine nature through the healing power of sound, rhythm and light. Code reactivation through the earth grid points. Now we'll get into that, some questions there. After a profound awakening in your 20s and a number of early years in the corporate world, you were called to the ancient women's sacred instrument of the frame drum, which has been, and you've been a master drum maker and frame drum and rhythm body teacher for over 30 years. Your connection to the ET world continues as you develop with a sonic healing directive coming mainly from the Hathor and Pleiadian energies. Jane has become one of Australia's leading players and researchers of this ancient instrument and has been used as a personal technology for deep transformation for many years. Jane offers inspirational talks and presentations to help us remember our true purpose on earth and believes that humanity has moved into a new level of our evolutionary journey. So let's have a for people that don't know your story, we went over your story on the show, so you can go back and watch that. But let's talk about codes and grid work. Do you want to explain to people that don't know what that is? What is working with codes and the earth grid? How does that happen?
Well, I'll try and keep it brief because I can talk about this forever, because it's just something that I really think is so, well, of course, has always been important, but is crucial at the moment. There are 3 grids around the planet. So when I say around the planet, it's not in a linear way. It's kind of interpenetrating the planet as well, but we'll think of it as around the planet. There's the gravity grid. So none of us obviously can see any of these grids, but they all exist. So we can't see gravity, but we know its effects. And gravity is very much connected to time. And the gravity grid is really shifting at the moment, and therefore time is shifting, and a lot of people have got this sense of time speeding up. As gravity lessens a little on the planet, it doesn't mean that we're kind of going to float off or anything, but as that there is a level of density that is lessening, time is actually speeding up, and that's another whole thing. And then we have the electromagnetic grid. So that's what the ancients called the ley lines, and people have heard the expression, the lay of the land. So we are, apart from being crystalline, we are also electromagnetic in nature. So human consciousness affects this electorate, well, all of them, but the electromagnetic grid in particular. And so this is a system that used to be completely intact around the planet, and the ancients could time travel through this ancient grid. And over time, as sacred sites have been desecrated and Indigenous peoples' knowledge and wisdom has lessened, and the land hasn't been sung, that's an expression for Aboriginal people, to sing the land. And what that's really doing is keeping the charge, in a sense, of the consciousness charge into those grid points. And so along those grid points, we have horizontal and vertical, obviously. Now, any electrician will tell you that when a charge crosses over another electric charge, it can't actually get through. What it does is it creates a vortex point. So, and the energy will either spin down or it will spin up. And sometimes it will do both. So sacred sites are always on these vortex points where ley lines cross. And sometimes they're negative in nature, depending on what's happened, in the memory of the earth. And sometimes they're positive. And so one of the things that I work with is taking groups to places, mainly in France and in various parts of Australia, where these energetic vortex points exist. And what we do is, because, like I said, human consciousness can change, that can help get these points back online, in a sense. We go there and gather to do various practices, and just our presence really, really does something. And to say to the land, I see you, I feel you. And there's a law of reciprocity where, you offer something to the earth and the earth goes, oh my God, you're seeing me, here, take this, and offers something back to us. And so that's really, really important for me. So that's the electromagnetic grid in a nutshell. The ancients used to be able to time travel, to bilocate through using this grid system. And I could go on about it, but I'll move to the third grid, which has recently come online. It's not like it ever went away, but it's kind of been rebooted in a sense, and that's the crystalline grid. And so the crystalline grid holds the memory. It's kind of holds part of the Akash around everything that's happened on the planet. But it's also being crystalline in nature. We know that silicon chip is crystalline, and it holds information, and huge amounts of information, in a tiny little chip. So when the crystalline grid actually came back, sort of was rebooted through a whole series of trigger points over the years, but during the 2012, the 2112 12 activation, that's when the crystalline grid, from my understanding at least, really came fully online. And so we've got a whole lot of new information now that's available to us. And if you look at some of the inventions that have happened since that time, there's all sorts of new things that are available, and if we can access it. And also what's happening is that places where there was intense destruction in the land and massacres and things like that, they're being slowly, that memory that has been held in the land is being slowly changed and kind of cleaned up in a way, so that it's like that's part of the reboot. Is so some of these places that were really horrible to visit, if we look at them now, there's a new energy coming in that's making them okay again, cleaning them up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, there's so much to say here. Look,
Yeah.
I often talk to people who say, oh, I want to come to Australia. I want to come to Australia. And because, I used to run the academy years ago, and we had a lot of people coming through from overseas. And I would ask them, as empaths and psychics and teachers and grid workers, what do you think of this energy down under? And they would say, oh, it's like no other energy in the world, really. And the only way I can explain it is that we've got horrible history, but we haven't got as much as the rest of the world, because we're a reasonably new Western culture, an ancient indigenous culture, but new fleshy white people culture. And I call us
Fleshy white people.
Fleshy white people.
I love it.
Who kind of, conquered the land and brought their laws and what have you. But so there's a freedom here like no other place in the world. There's a spaciousness that people feel that they don't feel in any other place in the world.
Absolutely. And yes, the horrible things did happen, but really they've only happened for the last 200 years, as opposed to something like Europe, for example, where the trauma to the land has been going on for so long, and that gets embedded and remembered by the land. And it's so much space here there's so many places that weren't affected by that. It's really hard to put one's finger on the energy in Australia. It is quite unique, and you do have that sense of putting your foot on the land and going, oh my God, I think I've just stepped on a place where no one has ever put their foot before. Whereas when I'm in Europe or England in particular, it's like you can feel that there's been thousands and thousands of boots and, fleshy white people having stepped on that, point over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I think it can make it a bit tricky here as well, because it's a very different frame of reference. We've actually, for me, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I've got to take responsibility here in a way that I don't necessarily. There's no historical framework as such, unless one can, understand and learn from the indigenous people, who've been here for 60,000 years. But it's new, and also the vegetation is really, really different here. Like in Europe, you've got the big oak trees and the birches, and that just open their big arms and go, welcome, come on here. And here we've got the eucalypts, which kind of go, I'm sort of, come to me. I get that sense, and then I'll offer to you. Like Aboriginal people, if you've spent much time in Aboriginal communities, I have, particularly with the women, they just sit there and, you sit on the outside of the circle and you wait, and you just wait, and eventually you're allowed to come in closer and closer and closer. And I find the land like that here. It doesn't immediately show itself. It looks pretty scrubby and dry. And then if you can drop down into it and really feel the spirit of the land, it opens to you. It opens to you then. Yeah.
You said there were 3 grids. We went through. There was the crystalline grid, the gravity grid. What was the other one?
The electromagnetic.
Electromagnetic, right?
Which is the ley line system.
Ley line system. Have you heard about? We were talking with Kevin the other day, another guest teacher. We were talking about the grid that's around the planet. Some people were calling this a prison planet. I don't call it a prison planet, but like we're quarantined from the rest of the universe because there's so much density here and thought forms and, as I said, horrible histories, that they didn't really want that energy to go out into the cosmos and affect the rest of the universe. So there's like a grid around the planet, which is, have you heard of that grid?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't. I mean, but ET's find us, so there must be some little holes in the grid. I don't think of this planet as horrible. So, no. I think as it's sort of Earth school. We're here to learn, and we really stuff up sometimes. But, no, I haven't. That's interesting. I'll have to watch that show. And
Yeah,
Think
yeah.
about that.
He was talking about astral projecting, and he said that when he leaves the planet through his astral form, he sees this grid.
Are there specific places in Australia that are like vortexes and or ley lines that are in capital cities, even like Sydney? Like I go to the botanical gardens here and feel like a lot of power. And then in February, I spent a lot of time in Sedona, where it's like a tourist thing to go to the vortexes there.
Yes.
But you feel masses of energy if you just stand still. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Sedona's really extraordinary. In fact, I sometimes find Sedona a little strong because, wherever you are, you can stand in the supermarket and feel the energy. Absolutely. Look, the ley line, the electromagnetic system, runs all around the planet. And there are, so there's, many, many places in Australia. And the main one is actually in the Northern Flinders Ranges. If you know the Flinders Ranges in South Australia, I take my partner and I take groups there working with the dragon energies in particular. But it's a place where what I'd love to do is I've got a map of the Australian ley lines that's been mapped out. I'd love to somehow get that to people. But if you look at this map, all the lines radiate out and into, of course, because it goes both ways, a place in the Northern Flinders near Arkaroola, which is very sacred to the Undimmathanya people. And it's very, very, very powerful vortex energies. Often you find where these vortex points are, there's a lot of minerals, because of course minerals have particular electric charges to them. So not always, but often they're places where, lots and lots of different minerals. Another one is Mount Warning, Wollumban, to the Aboriginal people, to the Bundjalung people. So that's up in, do you know where that is? Right up in northern New South Wales, up in that whole Tweed Valley region.
It's beautiful there, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so.
I went to the harmonic convergence there and stayed the night.
Yes, right. The harmonic convergence back in
1980 something or other. Yeah.
89. Well, that was, I think it was 89. That was an
87. Yeah.
87. Sorry, it was 87. 87. That was an extraordinary event around the world that really galvanized so many people. And with that event, just to go back to the crystalline grid for just 1 second, with that event, there was enough of a critical mass of people saying, yes, we want this this new change, whether we did it consciously or unconsciously. But that's actually what activated the start of the rebooting of the crystalline grid, bringing it back online, was that harmonic convergence event.
Diane's got a great question here. Can you tell us more about grid work? I say to people that we are both spirit and earth, because these bodies, these flesh suits that we're wearing, are made up of the same chemical composition as the earth. And so that is that extension of Gaia. These bodies that we're wearing are that extension of her body. I've said to Vladdy, sometimes there are people here that are wearing these flesh suits, bodies, that have come to hold a frequency, and because they're in a body, it allows that frequency to be anchored and nurture Gaia. You're like they're little, I don't even know what you'd call, like people that just, do you want to talk more about that, more about the grid work and how people sort of activate it and can work with it?
Yeah, I tend to keep it quite simple, really. I absolutely agree that, we have to be here in these little flesh suits, because it's the only way we can experience what we have to experience here in Earth School. And I remember the moment where I went, okay, I say yes to being here, because before that all I wanted to do was go home. And it was a great moment when we actually can go, yes, okay, I know I'm a spirit, but I have to be in this physical form. When we're out on the land, I find that, you know, we're so much more extraordinary than we think we are. And so it's really, like I said, just our presence, our conscious presence, will do an immense amount. Like the land's alive, the land's awake, the land knows we're there. You know, every time we put our foot on the earth, you know, I believe the land goes, here's a master. Here's a master stepping on me in this moment. And, you know, Gaia loves that. Gaia loves to be danced on and sat on with a cup of tea and, you know, chatted around and with. So there are obviously certain practices, but the practices that I work with more are not kind of so much when we're out on the land, so much calling to the land, because it's already there. But it's around how to work with lightening our light body or raising our frequency so that we can hear what the land has to say. It's not, you know, sometimes we'll sit with you know, a rock and go, you know, I heard the rock talk. And that's absolutely wonderful. But the rock is talking 24/7.
Yeah.
It's that we come into a harmonic resonance, and I work a lot with the concept of harmonic resonance. We come into a harmonic resonance with the rock such that we can hear it. It's not that it's just decided, I'm going to talk to, you know, you. It's always talking.
Yeah, I've got a great story about that. I had this gorgeous woman on the show years ago called Penny Wilson who had a profound NDE. She had a couple of them, but anyway, and she was saying that when she came back, she was so profoundly changed that her now husband, who was her boyfriend at the time, was so patient with her because she'd be like walking into Walmart or whatever, and she would say to him, Don, see that rock over there? See that rock? It's talking to me. It's beaming energy at me.
Yeah.
And Don would be like, it's all right, darling. It's all right. Thinking she was completely mad. But she just had that resonance, as you say. After having this NDE, her frequency had quite profoundly shifted. And now she could perceive, you know, all these different energies speaking to her.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and it can drive you nuts, really, you know. If you don't, you can negotiate with them and say, just settle down, guys, you know.
So Barbara has I think Barbara must have gone, but she said she'd visited France last year and was interested to know the places you referred to. Got to head to work now, so have to listen later. So maybe we'll answer that in a minute. Vladdy says, why was the crystalline grid down?
It was never kind of really down. It was just not very strong. Because it's a grid of remembering, you know, like I said, it remembers things. And it was, look, it was actually consciously done thousands and thousands of years ago. And we could say by the Anunnaki, by beings that didn't necessarily have our best interests at heart at the time. And also humanity is also, contributed to that because it's obviously in a particular frequency, you know, and we really didn't use it. We stopped using it because as humanity became denser and denser in our own consciousness, it wasn't really used. But it was more that it was consciously sort of taken down in a way.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. We had this discussion also in David's group about the Anunnaki. You know, they are the creator beings. They're the beings that created this world, both good and bad. And I wouldn't say they didn't have our interest at heart. I think they absolutely had our interest at heart, our being not humanity's interest, but being a soul's interest who wants to experience different levels of density. And so they had to create that, and they had to, like dumb down the grids, or they had to weave it so that, whatever they did, however they did it. I figure I'll only ever know this when I'm dead, because I can't understand it from this linear mind point.
Yes, yes.
But I might just get that scarf is just rubbing up against here.
Sorry.
Jane. There you go. No
what
problem.
I might have to do in a second is just go and quickly grab the heater and put it on.
Are you cold? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
no
I'll be back in 1 sec.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's go back to that France question for Barbara. Visited France, interested to know the places you were referring to in France.
Well, there's lots of amazing places in France, but where we take retreats is to a little place in the south of France that is called the Venus Landscape Temple. So it's, if you think of Toulouse would be the closest city, but it's not Toulouse, it's south of Toulouse. There's a little place called Limoux, but it's in just north of the Pyrenees, so it's right down the bottom. And it's actually a place where why we go, the retreat is called Awakening the Divine Heart. So it's a retreat around the Magdalene energies, who I am deeply connected to and love very much, the Mary Magdalene energies. So after the crucifixion, I'll just give the brief thing about this bit of land. Everything didn't go back to normal. I mean, the whole entourage still needed to escape. And so there is a much longer story I could tell. But anyway, they ended up in this southern part of France because there was a lot of trade with Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus's grand uncle, to this particular part of France called Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer. And from there, they went different ways, but the Druids were very active already. And they found their way to this part of France. There's a very sacred mountain there called Mount Bougarache. I've personally experienced the blue beings inside that mountain. I have climbed it and climbed in with a guide. But it's called the Venus Landscape Temple because there are 5 mountain peaks that form a 5-pointed star. And Venus, actually in the sky, the trajectory of Venus, I can't remember how many years it takes to do its whole trajectory, but in the sky, Venus forms a pentagon, or depending on which way you draw it, the 5-pointed star. And Venus, of course, is associated with love. And within this area, which is about a 50-kilometre area, the energy is extraordinary. It's like just like a chalice of love, and has been for thousands of years. And it's absolutely a place where has still been sung, so to speak. We chatted to a lot of old people and they would be like, what are you all doing here? And we'd be like, oh, we're actually working with connecting to the Mary Magdalene energies. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. It was just so natural for them. There's, the divine feminine is so really evident there in that place. So there are a number of sacred sites around there, and we do a 12-day journey there to that part of France. We had the intuition not to do it this year, which was amazing because it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So it's another part of the land. Hello, pussycat. It's another part of the earth where the land has been consistently sung. So the energies are really there, sung through the understanding within the churches of the divine feminine. There's churches dedicated to Mary everywhere, statues of a pregnant Mary Magdalene, and wells, and confluences of small rivers, and all of these extraordinary places. There's also been damage in the land there. That's where the Hathors were, who really, believed in one divine God and the power of love. There's myths around the Book of Love, and they were persecuted. But their energy is still, really powerful. The Knights Templar, there's a long, long history there in that part of the country.
Sound a bit later. We'll actually get everyone doing some sound. I was doing this morning. I just woke up so tired this morning.
Yeah.
And I just did some sound and it sort of shook me. It sort of helped. I just sort of did some toning myself. So we'll do that. But I want to talk about the Hathors and the Pleiadians. How were they introduced to you? How did you meet the Hathors and the Pleiadians, and how do they inspire you?
First, the way I first came in contact with the Pleiadians, I was in Egypt. I saw some, for those of you that don't know about the Hathors, they're depicted, they've come through onto Earth two main times. One to ancient Egypt, like ancient Egypt, not the later Egypt when the pharaohs went a bit crazy. So early ancient Egypt and also ancient Tibet. Both cultures used sound. So they came through and came down, in a sense, even though it's not up and down, with a body of information around sacred sound as tools for transformation and awakening. And so there's various temples that are dedicated to Hathor. The Hathors were kind of anthropomorphized into the goddess Hathor. And she's depicted with the cow ears. For any of you that know that, she's got the cow ears, which represent sacred sound. She's often depicted holding a frame drum, which is the ancient style of drum that I play. So I was first introduced to Hathor then when I was 20 and went to Egypt. And it just stuck with me. But I didn't do anything about it then. And then probably about 20 years ago, I was in the Adyar bookstore in Sydney when it existed, which was a wonderful new age bookstore. And a book literally jumped off the shelf. Like, it was extraordinary. I've heard about that, but it was the first time that it ever happened for me. And it was The Hathor Material by Tom Kenyon. And Tom Kenyon, excuse me, based in Washington State, is an extraordinary channel of the Hathors and sound healer. And I read this book, and something in me I did the exercises, the practices, and something in me just started to open and awaken. And then I noticed that specific sounds were coming through me. And really, I didn't know, when I started to channel sound, it was quite frightening for me. And it took me a number of years really it's like forming a relationship. It's like, this is the Hathor. I know that when I'm in this particular frequency, it's the Hathors. When it's the Pleiadians or the Magdalene, it's a different feeling. So that was my introduction to the Hathors. Yeah, through Tom Kenyon at the time. But you think about ultrasound, where what they're doing is finding the resonant frequency of, for example, a kidney stone, and then matching that. So you match the resonant frequency and amplify it, and the kidney stone will shatter. Absolutely. So that's one example of sound healing within the current medical system. Yeah.
Look, I think that as far as sound goes, we're just starting to get a grip of what sound can do, or frequency, like how we can. There's lots of doctors that talk about doing that with cancer cells, and as you said, using different frequencies that are not audible to our physical ears. That's right. That can shatter different specific. You can actually target a specific frequency of a cell, and shatter it. Yeah, it's amazing what we can do with sound. Look, years ago, I read in the Seth books that he talked about, or they talked about, a civilization that had gone underground in Earth's history, like millions of years ago, because they had evolved aggression out of their physical makeup. So they were so were sort of victims to, what am I trying to say? They were so not aggressive, passive, that's the word I mean, that they couldn't even defend themselves against the elements like the rain and the storms and the wind and stuff. And so they actually moved underground, and they used sound as their propulsion system. They used it to cook with, they used it to paint with. Like sound was their energy. That's how they used it to light and I think that I read that like 25, 30 years ago, and I think that we're starting to get just a glimpse of that, because it seemed so fantastic to me all those years ago. But now people are using ultrasound and all sorts of sound frequencies that are doing amazing things, that you could actually light a room with sound.
Yes. Isn't that extraordinary? Yeah, I think it's absolutely the way of the future. I think we're just really at the very early stages. But we are sound. We are frequency just condensed into physical form. Yeah. And that's why sound can be so effective, because it's sound meeting sound.
Yeah. I just thought I've got another great question here. Are you able, or we, to hear frequency clairaudiently? That's a great question. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's not my main form, but I can hear kind of. Sometimes I hear sounds that don't exist. Nobody else can hear. I'm yet to work out what they're saying, but I know there are specialists in that for sure. Yeah.
I think any singer does, actually. I'm just thinking of me singing, because when I'm listening to songs, I will hear the harmonics. I'll hear and I'll just want to sort of, what's it? Sorry, I'm not with it today. What's it when you sing on a different level?
Yeah, you harmonise.
Harmonise, thank you. Yeah, I want to harmonise, but I'll hear it before I sing it. Like I'll hearing it. So that's the clairaudience hearing, I suspect, because you're hearing it. Yeah.
Absolutely, particularly with those harmonics. And some of the harmonics are above what we would consider, audible, within the audible human range. So, but yes, some people are picking up on that. So that is an example of that. So that's amazing that you hear that.
Unit says, does our frequency slow down or speed up our age? What a great question.
I think when we're in a higher vibration, we're more youthed. We can actually slow the aging process down when we're of a higher vibration.
Definitely.
Yeah, and there's and the breath, there's practices around the breath, really slowing down the breath. Certain ones around breathing different ways in the nostrils. But in general, yes. Yeah, raising our vibration while being anchored. I mean, that's important, like not just raising our vibration, but raising our vibration while we're grounded. Otherwise, we actually age overage, because it's like an electrical plug. I know it's not the same in every country, but here we have 240 volts in our electrical circuitry, and we have to have that earth, that third little plug, so that it's earthed. And if that's not there, if you're not earthed, you can literally blow your circuits with sound, because it's so powerful. And that's something I come across a lot, is like, make sure you're earthed, and then the sound is way more effective.
Jane, you just said about being earthed before you go into these frequencies and healings. And what's a quick, easy way for an earthling to get earthed?
How do earthlings get earthed? Look, a really simple way is to step. Like, we are bipeds. We have these two amazing rhythm things at the end of our legs. This is just a really quick way. Just step left and right. Some people, it's amazing how difficult they just find that. And bring your awareness. So just go stung, dung, dung, dung. Just with your feet like this. Drop your awareness down into your belly, particularly Tantien, if you know what that is in the Hara, but just localize it in your belly. You can just do that. Just do it quickly. Okay, I've got to ground. Step. And if you're in a meeting or something and you can't step, just imagine yourself stepping and think of your feet going down through the floor, the energy of your feet. So you're not just the soles of your feet aren't just contacting the floor. You're actually sending like this antenna down through your soles of your feet, just down into what I call the molten core of the earth. And deep sounds are really good for that too. But if you're somewhere where you can't do that, you can quickly go, okay, ground. And if you've got a second, close your eyes, step if you can, and imagine sending energy from this belly point down through your perineum and into the molten core at the center of the earth. And it's like the umbilical cord down into the earth. And just feel how much more grounded you are. That's one really quick and simple way. Stepping, I use the drum a lot for that because it's such a deep tone and it's so powerful with its harmonics. But if not, just step and ground down, into the molten core and let it hold you like an anchor.
Okay, let's do some stuff, shall we?
All right.
Let's play.
All right. And on your next in-breath, draw the energies up from the molten core at the center of the earth. Please stop. So that the energies of the heavens and the earth meet in your heart. Nothing for you to do but exactly what you're doing now. Just allow yourself to be loved. And I'll bring in a chant from the Pleiadians. And we'll see what happens for a couple of minutes. Om Kidai Saduya Pigai Koisala India Kuyaya Simboya Klayoyambe Yodoya Akishai no indai o sala andaklai o totoe mindoe sailekiam toto ilai we yo kuyamai onea omboya.
This was honestly, you guys, this was the most profound, best moment of my existence. Like the love I felt with you guys today, I've never had that experience. And this was so magical and wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. It's hard to say goodbye.
Welcome. I loved it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.